a third way of looking at how to, a suggestion for annotating. Whoops. And the second reason tonight's video is to talk about some strategies for annotating. Since we haven't really done a lot of that reviewing and work, we're going to talk about that tonight as well. So again, here's the purpose: to describe one more notice and note signpost, and to go over some possibilities for annotation while you're reading. Oops. Okay, we're going to do the quick annotation review first. And I'm going to review 3 steps. Remember, first of all, that the annotating is 2 parts. And it starts with leaving the tracks of your thinking. So as you're reading, you're leaving sort of like breadcrumbs. As you're reading through The Lord of the Flies, places where you notice things, you're putting in a post-it note. And then you're continuing to read. Crumbs that you're going to go back to and look later on. Finally, as you read, you're going to be thinking about particular places to drop one of these crumbs. You're going to look for the contradictions and contrasts that we talked about in last class. You're going to look for the again and again signpost. You're going to look for important elements of the genre. Again, things we went over in the last class. You're going to look for plot elements. You're going to look for characterization. You're going to look for clues on conflict. You're going to look for signs of point of view. You're going to look for literary elements like simile, metaphor, sensory images, symbols, connotation, and denotation. All of these are places where you're going to want to drop a crumb to go back and think about later on. The second piece, so we've talked about use your post-it notes to leave crumbs. So then the second part of annotation is to look at the crumbs you've dropped and decide what you're going to make notes about. What parts of the text to actually annotate or make notes about. Are there words you need to define? Do you see themes coming out that you want to write about? Is there a passage that you left a crumb because you were confused and you need to maybe try and explain it? Did you notice lots of sensory words that you want to go back and look at how those sensory words created a particular meaning for you? An example here are all of the words that he uses when he describes the jungle. That description in chapter 1 is loaded with sensory words, and it creates a very particular mood for you. Maybe you've noticed a literary technique, a symbol, a simile, a metaphor, and you want to put what you think it means and how it is affecting what you understand. Maybe you think you see signs of a particular kind of character. Remember that if you've put crumbs at the signpost we've talked about, ask those questions that go with each signpost. And maybe you want to notice a prediction. So I'm going to say this again really quickly. Annotation is kind of a 3-part process. It's dropping the crumbs as you read. Crumbs for the kinds of places that you need to think about. It's going back to look over those crumbs. And finally, the third part is to go into your notebook and decide what is it that I want to say about it. Here's an example of what your notebook could look like. Here is the place I dropped the crumb. Here is actually the part of the text that I marked. I found a contradict and a contrast. And the question that came from that contradict and contrast is, why did the choir take off their clothes when everyone else was putting theirs on? And here are some possible answers to that question. Maybe the choir wants to stand out as different from the other boys. Or maybe they just don't want to seem to be doing what Ralph is doing, to kind of be looking like they're going along with everybody else, but that they can think on their own. So then I think to myself, what is this setting up? Finally, after I've annotated the whole chapter like this, after I've gone back and looked at where I've dropped important crumbs, jotted down why I dropped the crumb, and then went ahead and added my thinking, then at the very end, I'm going to use that little half-sheet handout I gave you. I'm going to pick 2 questions to focus on to kind of pull all this together. Okay? It seems to me that the choir boys in Jack Merridew are trying to form the most important group, with Ralph and the other boys forming another group. And now I wonder if this is going to be a problem, or if two groups can survive together on the same island. The connection I made is I remember one of the statements on the pre-reading guide that we talked about in seminar. Whenever two groups try to coexist, there was always a struggle. Is this foreshadowing? Is this where the conflict is going to be? That it's going to be a conflict between Ralph's group and Jack Merridew's group, the choir boys group? Is this why the author laid the contradict and contrast clue in the text? I don't know. But this is what an annotation might look like. And this is what's going to help you discuss when you get to seminar. Okay, pause, rewind this. Make sure you have this review down straight about how you should be annotating, because it's what I'm going to be grading for when I collect your notebooks. If you have questions about annotation, now would be the time to record them. Okay, the next part of the text is going to be on signpost number 3. And this signpost is that aha moment. Okay, here's the definition. When you are reading, an aha moment is when you're reading and suddenly a character in the story realizes something, and that realization is probably going to cause change. Change in his actions, change in his attitude in some way. The author's clues to aha moments are words like suddenly, I realized, in an instant, it came to her in a flash, now he knew, I finally understood. Here's the question that should pop in your head when you find an aha moment. Okay, here's the aha moment. How is this moment going to change things? The answer to this question perhaps is going to clarify the problem for you. Maybe the answer is going to give you an idea to the conflict. If the character has understood a life problem, then you've probably just uncovered a theme. Okay, look at an example. This is from a text, and I forgot to quote the source. I'll have to go back and let you have this in class. This is a direct quotation. It was a sunny day. I was in the front yard digging a hole with my little red shovel. I heard something like whistling. I looked up. It was whistling. It was coming from a funny-looking dorky kid walking up the sidewalk. Only he wasn't just walking regular. He was walking like he owned the place. Both hands in his pockets, sort of swaying la-dee-da with each step, strolling and gawking at the houses and whistling a happy little dorky tune like some Sneezy or Snoozy or whatever their names are. And he wore a button, a big one. It covered about half his chest, which wasn't that hard since his chest was so scrawny. So here he comes, strolling, whistling, gawking, buttoning, dorking up the sidewalk, onto my sidewalk, my property. And all of a sudden, I knew what I had to do. Like there was a big announcement coming down from the sky. Don't let him pass. There's the aha moment. Here's your clue. All of a sudden, I knew. There's the clue words. And the aha moment is, I can't let him pass by me. So your question here is going to be, how is this thought going to change the rest of the plot that happens? There were the clue words. There's the moment, and there's the question. If you were annotating this, you would put this as in his aha moment. You would put, don't let him pass. How will this change things? And then in the third column, you'd write, I think he's going to start a fight. I think he's going to not let the kid pass. I think the kids are going to become enemies. I don't know. What do you think? This is an example of what an aha moment looks like and how you would annotate it. Okay, my usual closing comments. Be an active viewer. Pause, rewind, review the video in order to be sure you are clear about the material. The annotation review is critical. Make sure you're clear. As with the aha moment, it's set up exactly like the first two you saw. Make sure you take good notes. Be sure you have some kind of organization in your notes, a graphic organizer, a bulleted list, highlighting, circling, whatever it takes so that the organization is clear when I check it. Make sure that you have main points clearly marked. Make sure that there are only the important details underneath each main point. Record one question that you have from these notes. This can be a question you have about the material itself, or that you have, or it can be a hot question, something you'd like to try and stump your peers with. And finally, post your summary to NiceNet. Go to NiceNet, go to the conferencing link, find the blog for your block. Use the rubric that's in your ISN for what a good summary looks like to guide you, because that's what I'm using to grade you. I hope that you weren't bored by the video. I hope everything is clear, and I will see you in class.